Yeah!
I should have never gone back, but something inside me whispered that I needed to see the house where I grew up one last time. The drive there felt endless, every mile pulling me deeper into a memory I wasn't sure I wanted to relive. When I finally pulled into the cracked driveway, I froze. The house stood exactly as I remembered it, old, tired, and almost watching me. The air was colder here, too cold. My breath fogged as I pushed the gate open, its rusty hinges screaming like a warning. For a moment, I almost turned back, but nostalgia is a dangerous thing. It lies. It convinces you the past is warm, innocent, safe. I stepped onto the porch and the boards groaned beneath my feet, as if the house recognized me, as if it had been waiting. Inside, dust coated everything like a thick blanket. The curtains sagged, pale and lifeless. But what struck me hardest wasn't the decay. It was how much had stayed the same. My childhood toys still sat on the shelves. Faded crayon drawings were pinned crookedly to the wall. Even the rocking horse in the corner leaned in the exact same way I remembered. I whispered to myself, "It's like time stopped here." But deep down, I knew time hadn't stopped. Something had been preserving this place. I wandered into the living room, heart hammering. On the coffee table, I saw it, my favorite picture book. I hadn't touched it in 20 years. The cover was bent, the corners frayed, but it looked fresh, as if I'd just set it down yesterday. I reached for it, but my hand trembled. My fingers brushed the surface, and the smell of old paper filled the air. That's when I noticed something. The book was open to a page I never liked as a child. A page where the shadow in the story lurked behind the boy's bed. And there, in faded ink, were words that weren't part of the story, scrawled in messy handwriting, words I didn't remember writing. "Don't forget me." I dropped the book, my chest tightening. The sound echoed far too loudly in the silence. My eyes darted to the walls. More drawings stared back at me. Only now I saw them differently. Crayon figures, me, my family, and always one more shape. Taller, darker, smiling wide. I stumbled backward, my hand covering my mouth. As a child, I told everyone it was just my imaginary friend. But standing there, I realized something that made my skin crawl. That figure wasn't imaginary. The air thickened, pressing down on me. The lights flickered, though no electricity should have been working. My heart pounded so hard it hurt, and in that suffocating silence, I heard it. A whisper, soft, familiar, coming from the dark hallway. "Welcome back." I froze. My childhood memories weren't just memories. They were alive. They were waiting, and I had just let them in. The whisper still echoed in my ears as I stepped back from the hallway. My chest heaved, every breath shaky, every shadow too alive. I tried to convince myself it was just the house, old wood, wind slipping through broken windows. But deep down I knew better. I walked into my old bedroom and instantly memories crashed over me. The bed sat neatly made, the same faded quilt stretched tight. My toys rested on the shelves, frozen in time. It was like stepping into a photograph of my childhood, but one detail didn't belong. Small handprints covered the wall by the window. Dust should have settled thick on every surface, but the prints were fresh, clear. I whispered to myself, "It's not real. It can't be real." Yet the more I looked, the more the truth pressed against me. The rocking chair in the corner swayed gently, back and forth, back and forth. The floor didn't creak under it, no draft touched it. It moved as if someone unseen sat there rocking silently, watching me. My skin prickled. I remembered those nights as a child, lying in bed with a blanket over my head, hearing the creak of that chair in the dark. Back then I told myself it was my friend. I stepped closer, forcing my legs to move even as every part of me screamed to run. On the desk, I noticed a small journal. My journal, the one I used to scribble in when I was a kid. The cover cracked as I opened it. Pages filled with childish drawings and crooked words. Stick figures of my family filled the first few pages. But every drawing included one more figure, taller than the rest, darker, always standing just behind me, smiling too wide. My stomach twisted as I flipped further. The last page wasn't in my handwriting. The letters were sharp, ugly, almost carved into the paper. You left me. Why did you leave? Come back and play. I dropped the journal onto the desk, my hands shaking so hard the sound echoed through the room. The rocking chair had stopped. The silence pressed down heavy like the house itself was holding its breath. Then came the sound, a giggle, high-pitched, soft, exactly the way I remembered it from when I was little. It drifted from the shadows, crawling under my skin, freezing me in place. The closet door creaked open an inch. My eyes locked onto the darkness inside. Something shifted. Two pale fingers slid around the edge of the door, slow and deliberate, tapping lightly against the wood. Tap, tap, tap. Each tap sank into my chest like a warning, and then the whisper returned, closer than before, curling through the room in a voice that wasn't mine but felt like it belonged to me. I never left. The whisper lingered in the air long after the closet fell silent. My body shook, but I forced myself to back away, my eyes fixed on the door as if it might spring open. I stumbled into the hallway, gripping the wall for balance. Every step felt heavier, as though the house itself wanted to keep me there. My head throbbed with memories I hadn't thought about in years. Nights I woke crying, convinced someone stood over my bed. Days when I begged my parents not to leave me alone in my room. They told me it was just bad dreams, a child's imagination. But now, walking through this house, those dreams sharpened into something else, memories that didn't match the ones I had grown up believing. I passed the old bathroom mirror, streaked with dust. The glass cracked in the corner. For just a second, I saw myself as a child staring back. Same wide eyes, same terrified face, but the reflection didn't copy me. Its lips curled into a smile, even though mine didn't. My stomach dropped. I blinked and the image was gone. Just my pale, shaking reflection remained. I pressed on, heart pounding. The living room felt colder now. The toys that had seemed so harmless minutes ago looked wrong. Dolls with cracked faces, a teddy bear missing one eye, all of them angled toward me as if they had turned while I wasn't looking. I tried to steady my breathing, but the air itself seemed alive, heavy with whispers just beyond hearing. A memory slammed into me. Hide and seek. I was 5, maybe 6. I remembered hiding behind the curtains, holding my breath, waiting to be found. But now the memory played differently. I wasn't the only one behind the curtain. Someone else crouched there with me. Something taller, its arm brushing against mine. Its grin stretching wider the longer I stayed hidden. I gasped, clutching my chest. That memory had never been there before. Or maybe it had, and I had buried it so deep I convinced myself it wasn't real. My vision blurred as another memory surfaced. I was lying in bed, staring at the closet door. It had been cracked open just like tonight. And in the dark space inside, 2 eyes glowed faintly, watching me. I remembered whispering goodnight, believing it was my friend, believing it was safe. But now I realized it was never safe. The house groaned and I spun around. The hallway stretched longer than it should, doors warping, the walls bending as if the house itself shifted to trap me inside. My heart raced. The whispers grew clearer, voices of children giggling, chanting words I couldn't quite make out. I pressed my hands to my ears, but the sound didn't stop. It wasn't coming from outside, it was coming from inside me. Memories I had buried were clawing their way out, twisting into nightmares that refused to stay forgotten. And in the middle of it all, that voice returned, closer, sharper. You remember now? The voice echoed through me, vibrating in my bones. You remember now? I staggered backward, pressing my palm to the wall, desperate to ground myself. The house felt alive, its walls breathing, its floor pulsing with every step I took. The memories I'd unearthed weren't just thoughts. They were chains, dragging me deeper into something I couldn't escape. The hallway lights flickered, even though no power should have been running through this place. My chest tightened, every breath shallow, ragged. I forced myself forward, trying to convince myself that it was still just a house. Old wood, empty rooms, creaking floors. But the truth was undeniable. Something else was here, something that had never left. A sound cut through the silence, laughter. Soft at first, like a child trying to hide. Then louder, layered, voices overlapping, echoing from different corners of the house. My heart raced, my legs trembling as I spun in every direction, trying to catch movement in the shadows. The laughter circled me, slipping from one side of the hall to the other, faster and faster. The door to the living room slammed shut behind me, the force shaking the walls. My knees buckled. I reached for the doorknob, but it was ice cold, burning my skin as I touched it. I yanked my hand back with a hiss, my fingertips stinging as though frostbite had bitten deep. I wasn't leaving, not yet. The toys on the shelves rattled. One by one, they toppled, tumbling to the floor. The one-eyed teddy bear rolled toward me, stopping at my feet. Its head tilted upward, stitched smile stretched too wide, button eye gleaming in the dim light. My chest tightened as the bear's fabric mouth tore open, releasing a whisper that crawled across the floor like smoke. "Play with us." The rocking chair groaned again. This time I didn't need to imagine. The chair moved in steady rhythm, back and forth, back and forth. And though the seat looked empty, the shadows bent unnaturally around it, curling as if someone sat there leaning forward, watching me. Every light in the house flickered at once, casting jagged shapes across the walls. The drawings I'd left as a child now seemed alive. Crayon smiles stretched wider, stick figures twisting into long, warped bodies. They surrounded me, filling the walls, their hands reaching out as though they wanted to drag me into the paper. My breathing turned frantic. I stumbled toward the hallway mirror, desperate for proof that this was only in my head. But when I looked into the cracked glass, I wasn't alone. Behind my reflection stood the figure from every childhood. Drawing, tall, dark, its grin impossibly wide, its hand resting on my shoulder, though I felt nothing. I blinked, and my reflection moved differently than I did. Its mouth opened, lips curling into words that weren't mine. "Stay." The word clung to me, heavy, suffocating. "Stay." My reflection's lips moved, but mine didn't. Its eyes were wide, hungry, locked on mine like it had been waiting for this moment. I stumbled back, my heel catching on the rug, sending me crashing into the floor. The impact rattled through my spine, but I barely felt it. All I could hear was the echo of my own voice where it didn't belong. Memories surged like a flood. Nights I thought were just dreams. Nights I whispered into the dark, begging my friend to leave me alone. But he never left. He hid in the corners, in the cracks of the closet door, in the spaces under the bed. My parents thought I was talking to myself, laughing with an imaginary playmate. But I wasn't. I was bargaining. I was surviving. And then the sharpest memory of all hit me. The night I ran. I remembered waking to his shadow stretching across my walls. Taller than the ceiling, his smile splitting too wide. He whispered promises of forever, of never letting me go. I bolted from my bed, sprinting down the hall to my parents' room, screaming until my throat tore. That was the last time I ever stayed in this house. We moved weeks later. I thought I had escaped. I thought I had buried him with my childhood. But now, standing here, I knew the truth. I hadn't left him. He had let me go, and only because he knew I'd come back someday. The mirror rattled on the wall, cracks splitting deeper. My reflection leaned closer, pressing its hand flat against the glass. I staggered to my feet, heart pounding in my throat, but my legs wouldn't obey. The shadows stretched across the room, swallowing the corners. closing in on me. The closet door swung open with a slam. From the darkness inside, pale hands reached out, dozens of them, small and childlike, grabbing the walls, the floor, the furniture. Whispers rose in unison, voices chanting words I couldn't understand, but every syllable burned into my skull. My journal flipped open on the desk, its pages tearing, spinning wildly as invisible hands scrawled across them in jagged ink. "Stay, forever, stay!" My throat closed, my breath ragged. I backed against the wall, pressing myself flat. But the shadows pressed closer, thicker, alive. And then I saw him, the friend, no longer a shadow, no longer a drawing. He stepped from the dark, tall and crooked, his grin splitting ear to ear, his eyes hollow pits that sucked the light away. He crouched low, inches from my face. Cold air rolled off him, sour and rotten, seeping into my lungs. His voice was no longer a whisper. It was a command. "This time you can't leave." My body froze. My scream never made it out. The last thing I saw was my reflection in the mirror, smiling as the shadows pulled me inside. And then, nothing. Hit subscribe and join us for more true horror nightmares.